This is Miss Pickles. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? What are you doing? She's a needy lady. She does not want me to set her down. Okay, so. Oh god. It's ferrets fighting over there. Hello. What I'm going to do right now is walk through piece by piece the actual rubric that I've posted on Canvas. So you should be able to find this under the actual assignment that's sewing project, drawstring pants or skirts. You can find it there. You can also find it in at least the comments in one of the announcements. I can send it to you. Please, if you feel like you are not able to access it, let me know. But we had some questions about grading practices and rubrics. So I just want to make sure that you have access to as much information as possible about that. And I'm going to go through it verbally in case videos and oral presentation is easier for anyone. So when we're talking about grading, what I grade off of is primarily mastery of a skill. And that is because research shows us, data shows us, that a lot of times when we grade on things that are ephemeral, such as effort, for example, getting an effort grade, or things that are, say, heavily extra credit based, things like that, what they tend to do is disproportionately benefit people who have a background that allows them to show effort deliberately in a way that an instructor would understand. I am absolutely one of those people. When I was in school, my instructors all thought that I worked really hard. I usually did, but even when I didn't, so I believe pretty strongly in doing my research regarding grading practices. I do not grade, or I very, very, very minimally grade sometimes on things that are ephemeral that you cannot quantify or understand whether or not you're achieving them, because the point is for everyone to learn the skill. And that for that reason, instead of things like extra credit or effort grades, or I know you tried really hard, all of that kind of good stuff, what we insert instead is the ability to continue redoing and resubmitting your projects until you are able to master certain skills. So all of your deadlines, you have one, but after that it's flexible and you can continue to resubmit that for no penalty, right? You give me a C project right now and you give me an A by the end of the semester, you're going to receive that A, okay? The entire point of those flexible grades is that everybody's able to take as much time as they might need, because these are skills that take different amounts of time for different people to learn, all right? So that is built in for you on purpose. That there's no extra credit or no like personality or did you seem like you were working hard based type of bias that's going to affect your grade. That's done extremely deliberately, because that's what research right now shows us is the most equitable practice in terms of grading fairly across a group of people who come from different backgrounds and different teaching styles and different grade schools, different high schools, all that good stuff. So just understand, when I say I am grading on mastery of skill, I'm grading on what you're able to accomplish with your project. And I'm assuming that y'all might come in at different times with different levels of ability the first time around. And that's why you have time forever to continue improving that skill if you choose to take it. You can also decide you're happy with an iffy grade or even a decent but not perfect grade, right? That's up to you. And I support you on that. You know your GPA needs. I don't know. I don't care. I support you what you need, okay? So full marks on any section indicates that you exhibited mastery of the skill listed by the end of this project when you turned it in or when you put in your last resubmission. What this means is that I'm grading by section. Everything is broken down into little pieces so that no one thing that you could do badly or not figure out or not feel confident with is going to sink your entire grade. That's the entire point. That's why we break it down into such small pieces. No one thing throughout this entire quarter is meant to completely tank your grade in any way. So the total possible is more than 100%. It's 102 to 104. I'm gonna have to check my own math there. I'm pretty sure it's 102, but it could be 104. Let's see what I took and left out. Which means that you have a little bit of leeway to get at least one little thing wrong before you're even under 100, right? So we have 20% on design elements. If you hear noise over there, it's because my partner is a sound engineer and he's doing some recording, like right that way. Design elements. So we're doing intro to costume and intro to tech, right? Design and tech, as we will continue to talk about in some of our discussion classes, have a very unique relationship where you always need both, but both come from different training aspects. And I believe that it's very important for everyone to have a somewhat of a grounding in both, regardless, because you can't have a costume made without a costume designed, right? That's not possible. And we talked about design elements early on. So you've got the style lines and shape. We talked about how those initial pants patterns that y'all started with have a little bit of kind of a bow shape to them. So they have a little bit of a slouch. It's a very specific pattern. You were allowed to alter that. We had some people go for straight legs, wide legs, pleated, da 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 da. We had people try for different things. So that is a design choice. Choosing a shape that you want to execute and then executing it. That's all part of a process. But you have this credit point for making the choice, right? You're trying to design something deliberately, not just end up with a product that kind of fell on you. So I've heard from a couple of you, oh, I don't care what color it is, I don't care what shape it is, sure, whatever it turns out is fine. That means that your design elements might not be the strongest grade, and that's something to think about because the goal was that you have a clear goal. And we talked about this, especially the first couple days, that you have a clear goal of what you're trying to execute and you are shooting for that thing. And that's what tells us whether or not you've succeeded at your own goals, okay? You can make that as simple as you want. You can make that as complicated as you want. But if what you've been saying to me is, I don't care, as long as it's technically a pant by the end, just be aware that your design elements not going to be the strongest 20% of your grade. Keep that in mind. If that concerns you and you would like to think about ways to ameliorate that possibly negative effect, let me know. We'll talk it through. 5% color choice. This is really your dye. This is actually bringing in a dye swatch, like inspiration image when I asked you to. This is going for it, having a clear idea of what you want it to look like in the end, all of that good stuff. So again, that's one of the moments where if what you told me is, I don't care, dye it a color, think about that a little bit. You're supposed to be shooting for something. You're supposed to have a clear goal in your head. That's what we've said since the beginning, okay? Overall design impulse, clarity, and inspiration. Some of you came in with, like, even if you didn't come in with a sketch, which some of you did, which is awesome. If you came in with these 3 images, I want kind of a combination of these 3 things, and I want it to be kind of like this and have this vibe. Great, awesome. That's exactly what we're hoping for, and that's a full 5 marks on that. If you didn't do that, but you had a clear idea of what you wanted, also great. You might be in the 4 range, whatever. If your interest was just creating something, don't care what it is, this is one of the places where you're going to struggle in terms of grading because we are specifically looking at that. And then embellishment design choices is 5% as well, which is not the execution of your embellishment. Everybody's got to have pockets. Everybody's got to have an embellishment. It's not the execution of that. It's deciding on it, going for something specific, wanting something specific to create your thing. And the idea is you're looking for something that feels like it's supposed to be part of the garment and was always part of the garment, not just something that kind of got tacked on at the end because you knew you had to do an embellishment, right? These are the design portions, the design-based 20% of your total grade for this project. Okay, moving on. 70% technical skill. There's a ferret like right over here, and I'm pretty sure she's trying to spill my coffee. Hey, okay, everything's ruined. It's fine. So 8% we said to pattern alteration, which is the idea of that we did the very first step of things that we did, achieving a pattern appropriate to your own measurements and design choices. So being able to alter something for your own waist and hip measurements, and being able to alter it in case you wanted to alter the design lines, the actual lines of the pattern, to achieve something different from from the original pattern pieces that you had. Includes taking your measurements, applying them to length, width, and waistband and hip, and processing the math to create alterations at the waist and hip, applying your numbers to the pattern paper and creating new pattern lines to cut on. If you feel confused at this point about those things, I would go ahead and check out previous videos. I would go ahead and check out the demos in class, and I would go ahead and check out the specific alteration supplemental video that Christine and I made during one of the lab sessions specifically for you guys, walking through the way to do that particular math. It's not an emphasis on the math. It's really it's mostly subtraction. It's mostly saying, okay, this one's bigger. Do I want to make it smaller? Do I want to make it bigger? You can do it fairly intuitively. I do it a lot of the time fairly intuitively. That doesn't mean I can't pull out my drafting books, but I mostly don't, because mostly I'm a draper, which means that I do a lot of my pattern creation as an extension of sculpting almost. I'm a sculptor primarily, and I do a lot of my pattern alteration that way because you can sculpt with fabric. So if you feel confused about that, it's because this is made intentionally so that it's hard to get wrong. It's hard to get wrong, so wrong that it's not going to fit you at all. It's tricky to do that. This is a project that's built, so it's going to be tricky to do that. Which means you do have a lot of kind of like lie to me room. You know what I mean? You have a fair amount of like sell me on the fact that you meant it to be that way. I left that in there for you on purpose because this is a project that's hard to get completely wrong on that level. We have pattern cutting and fabric cutting. This means cut it out neatly, put it on your fabric, pin it down, cut out your fabric pieces neatly, including putting in your seam allowance. I think there's a separate 2% for marking your seam allowance, making sure that you mark that either 1/2 inch or 1 inch. You choose 1/2 inch or 1 inch, whichever one you want to do. Seam allowance into your garment and then cutting it out. So for that whole process, you get a total of 4% points. If you did that, congratulations, you earned those points. Good job. And take pictures. Take pictures of everything. Okay. 8% stitching accurately on your marked stitch line. Round 1, working on your own garment. Okay. Stitching on your stitch line, which is actually stitching on that pattern line. That whole process we went through of pinning it so that the lines match up on both sides and pinning it perpendicularly enough times and then going through it. I know a couple of you have had to go over it a few times because that flannel kind of tends to like kind of slip side to side on itself by nature of the fabric. Yeah, I mean, and that's somewhere where, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward what I'm going to be grading you on. You can see it, right? We've looked at it visually a few times and kind of gone like, this is perfect. This is less than perfect. There's reiterations of that in a lot of the videos. I can tell how many views are on videos. So if you're completely confused by a step that has been given in demonstrations, I would recommend that you're going to watch those videos and then come to me with specific questions, because that's going to be the way that I can help you. Instead of repeating an entire lecture for whichever piece you need, go watch those videos. I know that a lot of them only have like 2 views, a lot of the older ones, which leads me to believe that some confusion could be ameliorated by watching the demonstrations. I know. So stitching accurately on that line, I know that some of you have gone back and forth like 6-8 times trying to get that right. Don't think that that won't be accounted for. Again, I don't usually grade much on presentation or on effort, right? But at the same time, you've put in the work, and that is something that will be taken into consideration. At the end of the day, it just will be. Whereas somebody who's struggling with those lines, and I know that they've only been in for like an hour of homework time, that's a different story. That is a different story. It just is, because that tells me different levels of work and dedication to this particular project. That's just what it tells me. Being prepared for the in-class fitting, that's an 8% part of your grade. I would assume that you know whether or not you've done well at that part. If you have questions, feel free to ask me. But that was the idea of having your waistband, the first seam of your waistband in and applied and ready to actually be fit, which would mean that you have a side seam and an inseam, so an out seam and inseam, a crotch seam if it's pants, or just 2 side seams and the waistband if it's a skirt. That's all we were asking for. Back to the previous one, stitching accurately on your marked stitch line. I am only looking at your inseam and your outseam. Okay, I decided that as I was looking through where everybody was at. I'm not going to be looking at your pockets. I'm not going to be looking at your waistband. Weird alterations happen in those places. I'm going to be looking at your inseam and your outseam to make sure that you've been able to achieve that to the best of your abilities and hopefully achieve it properly. So as long as everything else looks good from the outside, you're okay. I'm leaving you that room to like fudge it a little bit, right? If it looks good on the outside, good job. Except for your inseam and your outseam, which are basically just your straight lines. That's where we're going to be looking for that attempt at the really, really perfect seam, okay? And I've said that in a couple other videos, but I'm saying it again. Moving on, fitting your garment and collaborating with your fitting group. This means collaborating well. Part of the learning outcomes and goals of this entire class are collaborating with your fellow technicians and collaborating with the other people that will be involved in any given production. So that is something that I will be looking at, is how well did you collaborate? Am I getting complaints about how you behaved or whether or not you were working well with other people? Fitting your garment and collaborating with your fitting group. It does matter. Your behavior matters in any professional capacity when it comes to collaboration in entertainment, performing arts. Your behavior is always going to matter. It's part of the skill package. Marking your fitting. You may be involved in this, making sure that your fitting gets marked. So making sure, and this is a blend, right? It might be your alterer and you working together, vice versa. But this is one of those things where you need to make sure that as you're fitting, it's marked clearly enough that somebody else can interpret it and actually apply those alterations. We talked a little bit about that in class. If you need further clarity, let me know, because we didn't make a specific video about that because everyone was working. There wasn't somebody who could just pop over and take a video. Stitching accurately on the new stitching lines that are made by your alterations. Some of you might have to do this, some of you might not, right? This is going to be different. Everybody's going to at least have something at the waistband, so you should be doing that as neatly as possible, marking where it needs to be and stitching really nicely on it. Okay, this is a separate grade from just learning to stitch on a marking line. Waistband installation, not your own. This is you altering on somebody else's and putting in the elastic. If you are unclear on what exact things are relevant for you alteration person and you as a garment owner, check out those videos that have waistband pockets and hems, because I spell it out really, really clearly in those videos, and I recommend that you go along piece by piece with that. Since I didn't see anybody taking their own notes or video notes, that's how you're going to be able to remember the content from the class. Those are your notes, okay? So use them. Or take your own notes. That's cool too. Elastic or drawstring installation, not your own garment. So that is something that you're going to be doing for 2%, is literally just putting in the elastic or the drawstring. The process we're using as a safety pin, it's the same thing you would probably do if, you know, your drawstring fell out of your sweatpants or whatever. And that's 2% of your grade. Yay, I believe in you. You can absolutely do that. Hem as marked per the fitting. So we mark our hem during the fitting, and then we go through the process that we lay out in the hem video. If you want to do a fancier way of doing the hem, I chose the simplest, the 101 version of hem, using the exact same stitches that we've been using for things. But that is something where we're going to look for it to look really neat and clean on the outside, and it is something we're going to look for an even distance between the edge of the garment and the stitching line where you choose to place your hem. You can place your hem stitching line wherever you want. It could be very, very close. It could be a little further up. We're looking for an even distance. I would recommend not more than an inch up from the edge of the garment, just in general. But that's not a requirement. So if you put it 3 inches up because you had that much extra fabric, technically I can't qualify you. So they're not going to be graded on that. Even distance, nice clean stitching line, nice clean press. You get the grade. Pocket installation. You can do this on your own garment or your partner's garment. I'm not going to fight you on who does whose pockets, because that seems like a silly thing to fight about. Yes, everyone should install 2 pockets. That means that you need 4 pieces of fabric, 4 pattern pieces equals 2 pockets, 2 each, 2 per side. I'm not going to look at the inside. The inside could be messed up, as long as it's like mostly messed up invisibly, like in the wrong side, buried in there somewhere. I'm not going to look too closely, but your installation, actually placing it into the seams, is what you're going to be graded on. That has to look really nice for a perfect grade. But I'm not going to dig into those seams. I'm not going to like move everything around and look and see if you got a little jagged in there somewhere. No, if it looks good from the outside, if it looks good the way that you've pressed it together, you're good, okay? Looking nice from the outside is part of the theatrical skill. We are not in an advanced technological class where I'm going to be checking every single tiny, tiny detail, because that's just not the class that you're in, okay? Pressing, steaming, trimming. Do this on your own garment. Trim down your seams. This is only 2%. It's not huge, but trim down your seams so that everything's kind of like or your seam allowance, so that everything's kind of an even length. Make sure that everything's nice and pressed for your final photos, so that we have an image of your thing that is not kind of besmirched by a ton of wrinkling and stuff that happens during the sewing process and the dyeing process. Excess fabric, trim it away, so that everything's kind of like, I love a nice 1/2 inch seam allowance when you're done, but when you're done, not at the beginning, when you're done. You could also go as low as 1/4 inch if you wanted to, okay? That is for you to do on your own garment. I recommend not trimming or taking scissors to somebody else's garment, no matter what else you're doing. And then a full 10% embellishment, execution, and application. So this could be your painting, beadwork, trim, application, whatever you're doing with your life. Some of you are doing patches or alternating cuffs, things like that. If you need help building a skill for your embellishment, let me know. I have sewing machines here. I have a full workshop upstairs. I can send you more demonstration videos. I can talk to you one-on-one. Whatever you need, I'm happy to do my utmost to do. What I can't do is on Wednesday night at midnight start
busting out tutorial videos for your embellishments. Okay, so keep that in mind. Budget your time. Budget your time. Help me to help you. So yeah, you get a full 10% for just your embellishment application. And remember, there's an extra percent for your embellishment design and making it not just look tacked on. It's something that's part of this garment and was supposed to be there, okay? Which is, I grant you, as an art, sometimes it is somewhat subjective. There is grading in here that's somewhat subjective. So all of your technical stuff pretty much is objective, right? It's looking at your mastery of that particular skill. Some of the rest of this, it is a little bit subjective, but the total of what we have subjective is 30%. Your design and then your basically your participation package, your work ethic, all of the things that you're showing me through your process of working on these projects, which most, and including your attendance, including your, have you found out what you missed? Have you done the makeup work? Have you taken time to find out what you missed, and make sure that you're caught up? All of that good stuff. That's in your participation package. The total of those things together is 30% design and participation package, which means, yeah, it can tank your grade if you were horrible at if you really struggled with every single element of those things. Um, I don't think anybody struggled that badly that you're not gonna get that 30% like clean out. But yeah, it can damage your grade. It can absolutely damage your grade if those are the places where you're struggling and you get the technical elements all right. Yeah. And the reason for that is because all of those things are skills. All of those things are skills, and what I'm looking at is not, oh, I know this student, and this student's great, or I don't, whatever, I don't think this student's so great. I don't usually feel that way about students, but it's not me looking at you as a student. It's me thinking, okay, this person comes into me, and I'm an employer, and it like an industry employer, and I'm looking at their abilities based on what they've shown me so far to whether or not I would hire them for an appropriate beginner position for what this project is, whether or not I would hire them to do this level of project. Do I feel like they've gained that competency? And part of that is teamwork, part of that is collaboration, part of that is time management, part of that is being able to be proactive about gaining skills you don't already have. All of these things together, part of that is being able to look at something visually and make design choices when somebody else isn't there to do it. All of these types of things are part of the skill package. We are grading on skill development throughout, even the pieces that are subjective. It's not like, oh, I like your pens. That's not part of it. I like your design, not part of it. Would I feel confident hiring you? Would I feel confident recommending you? Those are the tangible things in your skill development process that I can grade on for a final project. Okay. And I'm going to be looking at how much time did you really put into it? Did you find answers when you didn't have one? Did you come to me and ask? Did you do all of the proactive things? Because we talk about proactive communication being one of the biggest requirements of this class as a whole. Being able to ask for what you need, being able to identify what you need and asking for it. Those are skills. You're learning a lot of skills here, okay? There's a lot of different skills going on. Not all of them are sewing. And a lot of them, to be frank, once you get the hang of sewing, most of them are harder than sewing. Like, seriously. Full grown adults who can't do these things. Okay, so you have broken down pretty much evenly 1.6% for each of these things in your participation package, which includes attendance, makeup time, actually taking the time to make up classes, actually watching the videos. Those are your notes. Lectures will not be repeated in full. Those are your access points to the material that you miss, regardless of why you missed a class. Homework time, focus, contribution in class, time management, the whole package. Reminder that you have no final attendance grade by itself. Attendance is worked into each project. That's something that's in the syllabus that we talked about day one. And attendance just doesn't mean did you come to class, but did you figure it out if you had to miss class? Did you do something on purpose to make up and to figure out what you missed and how to catch up with the rest of the group? That could be asking for an extension if you need more time. That could be actually going and asking me what you need, your classmates what you need, okay? Some of you have been doing that and some of you have not so much. I'm hoping that you know who you are, but if you're not sure, ask me, okay? That's proactive. Proactive. So proactive communication with instructor and student collaborators. Proactive strategies for makeup work. I cannot make that strategy for you. That is your job to do. That is your responsibility. Meeting hard and soft deadlines throughout the project. We're all great at that. Scheduling shop or home/dorm work time appropriately for the requirements of the course. This is one of those things that's hard to judge, and I'm happy for you to try to fight me on it, but the one thing I will say is genuinely, do you think that I don't know exactly who's been in the shop for how long? Like within probably a quarter of an hour to a half hour? honestly. I think the one time that I wasn't in the shop was when I had a friend over like Friday afternoon. If you were in the shop Friday afternoon, feel free to let me know. But if you think that I don't know how much time has gone into everybody's projects roughly up to the date when I left, um, I would just encourage you to rethink that assumption, because this is a project that's intended to have homework hours. This is a project that's intended and designed to take up time outside of class. That is your homework. And if you're not doing your homework the way that we go along as we go along, there's not that much that I can do to help you on that front. Except, of course, allow you to redo it until the end of time. So you could choose to do that. That's totally up to you. Scheduling, strategizing, make up time for missed classes appropriately, including watching demo videos, and asking specific questions to clarify how to move forward. These are all in your benefit. These are not things that I'm sitting here being like, they should do these because that's the profession. No, I'm saying these are the things that are going to help you succeed in this class. These are the tools you should be developing, and these are the things that are going to help you, okay? That is the whole list. I know it's a big list. And the thing that I really want to, oh, I forgot how shiny that book is. The thing that I want to emphasize to you is that give yourself some grace here as well. Especially if you've been working really hard and you still feel like you're not quite hitting it, or you feel like the plot twist was like a big stressor in your life. What I would say is you're learning, there's a lot of skills built in here that are not just, did you learn to use the sewing machine? Did you practice on the sewing machine after we did our demo to figure out if you felt comfortable with the sewing machine or not? Then did you ask me if you needed help learning to use the sewing machine? Right? That's a whole package. There's also a package of communicating with others, learning to mark things, learning to just to do this work, which is not what the work that we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to what, rehearsals or sitting on our computers writing essays or other response types of things. This is a different kind of homework, and it takes a different set of skills. I remember vividly the first time I took a real studio class with a really not harsh isn't the right word, an exacting instructor. And I was horrified at the concept of coming into the shop and having to learn something and fail at it in front of a bunch of people for potentially weeks at a time until I finally figured out and I wasn't failing anymore. And I skipped most of those lab sessions that I was supposed to be at because I was so horrified at the idea of having to learn in front of people instead of like failing on my own in my own little corner. I can imagine that same kind of stress is existing for a lot of you. How do you work in the time? You can't just do it in the middle of the night. You can't plan it for, when you plan your overnighters, for your all-nighters, for your other classes. Like, this is a different skill set. Unfortunately, it's a skill set that is required for this type of project, and this type of project is what's required for this type of class. So think of it as your homework time, really do. I'm not forcing you to come in at any particular time. I'm trying to leave the doors open as long as I possibly can and be as present as possible. But at the end of the day, I can't make it not take time to make pants or a skirt. I can't make sewing not take time. It's even worse when you get into fabrication. I can't make like silicone curing not take 24 hours. It just does. So think about your experience with this and sit with it for a while and wonder, how can we budget that time? What times do you need to ask for? Do you wish that you come in the morning more? Do you wish that you had realized how late the shop was open? Figuring out how to do homework within a public setting, homework that can't just be done within your normal coping mechanisms and your normal strats that you have. Yeah, it's hard, and that's the skill that we're asking you to learn. I'm trying to give you as much leeway as possible in the process of learning that skill. So again, as with everything else, figure out what it is you need, what you wish you had during that process. Ask me for those things and I will tell you whether or not I can provide them, or I can try to find you resources for how to get them. But understand that by itself and a number of other things that we're doing are, right, soft skills, developmental skills, strategizing skills. And those are all things that need to be learned separately. They're very normal things to have messed up or be confused by. They're very normal things to sort of feel overwhelmed by until you process them and you get them. There's no shame in that. You're learning a lot. I mean, in 10 weeks, you're learning a lot of strategies that are very hard to learn. And I think you should give yourself some congratulations on that. And then feel more than free to send me pictures or messages like, here's my seam. Is this perfect? Is this perfect enough? Here's my other thing. Is this good enough? Here's how I've behaved about this thing. Does that fit the conduct skills and the behavior skills that we're looking for, the soft skills? Ask me. I'm happy to tell you. I'm happy to give you ballparks. I'm happy to look at your project before you turn it in and tell you where you're at. Happy to do all of those things, okay? So your job is to figure out what you need and ask for it and keep moving forward. If you don't know what to do to move forward, that's when you ask, what's the next step? All right? I believe.
You okay in there? Oh, he's going under the guitar. What's you doing? Yeah, you better get that. You better get that towel that you stole from the kitchen. You better get that towel.